So metabolic flexibility is often the reason that people quote for our need to eat carbohydrates. And so therefore the idea being that we need carbs in our diet because if we stop eating them, then we won't be able to process them properly by our body, first of all, but also, of course, that we're not going to get the micronutrients that we need from fruits and vegetables. So first, we are metabolically flexible when we're born, right? Every child comes into the world with the ability to use fat and to use carbs as their fuel source and to digest the appropriate foods that we're supposed to eat. So I want to start off this by telling you a little story about when I decided to eat carnivore so I did it for 2 months. What happened was I felt amazing and I didn't have any that I could tell. 2 months is not 5 years. So I'm going to be clear about that. But for what I could see, I didn't have any issues with eating carnivore. Like I didn't have any cramps or I didn't have any issues in my body that suggested that I was missing micronutrients. The only issue that I ended up having happened when I went back to eating a normal diet. So when I reintroduced vegetables, I had a reaction. So my microbiome, my gut, I couldn't manage it. So the truth is, I did have an issue, but was it that I was no longer metabolically flexible? Well, no. Actually, what happened was that my body, after eating 2 months only meat, my microbiome changed, so my gut bacteria changed, and I no longer had the gut bacteria to process vegetation, so the vegetables that I eat. So the first thing I did was I reintroduced the vegetables that I typically eat. So again, this is a keto diet. So I eat vegetables, I reintroduced them, and what happened was my body was right back to where it was able to process these things. This idea that we have that we lose metabolic flexibility on a keto diet because we're not eating extreme amounts of carbohydrates isn't reality. I started to eat them. I was back to able to eat them, which means that I was still metabolically flexible. Okay, so let's talk about what's really happening. So I wanted to give that story because I wanted to start this off by saying there's a mistake happening here, and now we're going to walk you through what the mistake actually is. So we lose metabolic flexibility by adding carbohydrates to our diet. So when we add carbs, our body is overloaded with carbs. And what does overloaded look like? So our body gets stuck in a loop of trying to detoxify our blood after each meal. And it's trying to detoxify our blood because, in fact, we know that eating carbohydrates in larger amounts is toxic to the body. Every doctor knows this, so you can ask your family doctor. They know this. And so therefore, of course, our body tries to clean up. And in order to clean up, it will take that sugar that we've eaten, carbohydrate, sugar, 2 words for the same thing, take that sugar and put it away. Normal things that our body does. The second problem that happens when we eat large amounts of carbohydrates is that our brain gets stuck in an addiction cycle because our body's not used to that much sugar in the normal foods that we would have been eating. So the vegetables and like normal amount of fruit we used to eat hundreds of years ago, our body would have had it for a little bit and then it wouldn't have been available because it just wouldn't have been available because winter or end of crop season or whatever, and we didn't have a way of keeping these things for that long, and we would have gone months without having that high amount of sugar. And so again, our brain would not have been locked into a give me sweet high carb every single day. The next problem that we have is when the body is in a storage mode. High insulin is a storage mode state for the body. Every bit of energy that we eat gets stored, because when you're in storage mode, you're storing. It's sort of like when you're cleaning your house. When you're in cleaning mode, you clean everything. You don't just clean the dishes, you do the laundry, you clean the cupboards, you wash you just like, well, sometimes when you get into cleaning mode, you just start cleaning, everything gets clean. And our body is similar. When our body is in storage mode, it's storing. Now, here's where things get tricky, because when our body's in storage mode, insulin is high, it's putting stuff away, then it puts away all the energy, including the fat. And now we don't have enough energy to fuel the body. However, when it's in storage mode, it can't take energy out of storage because it's putting it in. And so what it does is it asks us to go get more food. But that's not necessarily a problem, except when we go get more food, we end up going and getting more carby, yummy, delicious foods, because that's what we like. And so because we go and get carby, yummy, delicious foods, our body goes right back into that loop where it's like, oh no, too much sugar. And then it has to clean up. And therefore it puts stuff away, and it's a cycle, right? We're in a loop. And Wellness Warrior, we need to understand that we eat this way because we've been taught that a carb is a carb, right? So it comes from a vegetable, or it comes from some protein, or it comes from fat, it's all the same. And therefore, rather than looking at how many carbohydrates we eat, because that would tell us if we were harming our body, because if we were actually looking at carbohydrates, then we would actually know that carbohydrates are the thing that we need to manage. But we don't do that. We look at calories, because when we look at calories, then all carbs are equal, because all calories are equal, because I'm sorry, I said carbs coming from protein. I'm talking about energy coming from protein. I messed that up. Carbs don't come from protein. That's ridiculous. Carbs come from vegetation. But my point is that when we're looking at carbs and saying that the carbs from processed food are equivalent to the carbs from vegetables, are equivalent to the carbs from fruit, are equivalent to the carbs from a chocolate bar, are equivalent, like when we say all of these things are equivalent, it's because we're saying that all calories are equivalent. And because we say all calories are equivalent, and we only focus on calories. So 90% of people, when they turn the package over to see what's in it, what they're focused on are calories first, and then low fat second, and then ingredients. And they're not even paying attention to carb count. And this is a huge mistake, because actually our body only cares about quality of the food, and carb count is really high second, right? Really high second. Why? Because carb count, and it might even be first, to be honest, because carb count is what determines whether we're being poisoned or not. Too much carb, medical emergency, body jumps into action to save us. And I'm trying to drive this point home, because I feel like we don't understand this. And because we don't understand it, when we achieve goal weight, we allow ourselves to resume eating these high carb foods that are actually causing damage to our health. So all of a sudden, we have this really weird thing happening where we are eating something that we don't need to eat, because we feel free, because, oh, my weight's under control. But we don't realize that our weight's under control because for the last year we were eating properly, and our body finally was able to do what it was supposed to be doing the entire time, which is keeping us healthy so that we could be at a healthy weight. So 6 years ago, when I was crying over my hip being in a horrific state, and realizing that there's a possibility that I will not be able to walk properly, like going forward, like that was actually something that was, there was a possibility that I wouldn't be able to walk properly unless I had an operation. And even with the operation, I'd seen people. I have seen people. I know people who've had the operation. You don't ever walk properly again. You kind of have a limp, and or at least the people that I know. So I just decided there's no way I was going to lose the weight, because I was sure it was my weight that caused my hip pain. And I started to walk every day, and I was eating healthier for what I understood eating healthier was, which was I I well, we'll get to the eating healthier. I was walking every day, I like at least an hour at a time, and I didn't lose not even a pound, which is like was a sad moment for me, because you would think that after putting in 6 months of really hard work, I would have seen some kind of result. And when I say really hard work, so let's talk about what I was actually doing with my food, because to me it was hard. I started to eat fruit. I don't like fruit. I've never liked fruit. And I started to eat fruit, and I was having fruit every day. Well, okay, in fairness, was I having it every single day? I was having it, I would say, probably 4 to 5 days a week. I hate fruit that much. So I'm not going to lie and say I did it every day, because that would have been amazing. Although that would have been stupid, but like I only know that now. Okay. I added vegetables to my diet, because I also wasn't eating much vegetables, because French fries aren't really vegetables. So I added vegetables to my diet. And so that meant instead of French fries, I was having potatoes. I was having carrots. Do you see us? Right. But they're still starchy. So, right. I was having peas. I was having, what else did I have? I did have cabbage, and I did have broccoli, because those are vegetables that I actually do like. But the thing is that I still was having rice, and I still was having, but I replaced pizza, right, with rice. So I wasn't having pizza as often, and I replaced, you know, other junks that I was eating, like other junk food meals, like poutine or whatever. I replaced it with whole grain pasta and whole grain bread. I only ate one chocolate bar per week. I like had myself on a regimen, right? And I replaced most of my junk food with granola bars. So I really believed that these were things that I was going to do that were going to help me to be healthier. I really honestly believed I was doing the best that I possibly could do for my body. And unfortunately, the end result was I did not even lose 1 pound. Not even a pound. Not even one. Nope. I lost nothing, right? Wellness warrior. So I remember learning that in university, I learned that sugar impacts the brain similarly to cocaine. I remember learning that in university. And I also remember learning in university that carbohydrates and sugar were two words for the same stuff, right? I did learn that in school. Totally knew that they're the same thing. Yet somehow, when I was trying to heal myself, I was trying to lower my weight so that the thought was the pressure on my hip would go away, and then I would be able to feel better, because I was convinced that since I hadn't fallen and I hadn't broken anything to my knowledge, that this had to be a situation where I was too heavy, right? I mean, remember, I was more than 80 pounds, like it was 80 pounds is overweight, right? So this is what I was thinking. Somehow, I didn't put it together that the 17 grams of carbs in that granola bar that I was allowing myself to eat, I like chocolate chip granola bars when I was eating them. So that was 24 grams of bar was giving me 17 grams of carb, was basically equivalent to 100 grams of chocolate giving 60 grams of carbs. But actually, when I do the math, it's worse. A 24-gram bar giving me 17 grams of carb is actually 70.8 grams of sugar per 100 grams. It's worse than the chocolate bar. Much, much smaller. And you might think that, well, that's still like, it's not bad if you, since you're only eating so you're eating a 24-gram bar instead of eating, usually a chocolate bar is like 60 grams. So I'm still getting less carb in me, right? So that should still be okay. But the problem is, because that was the only snack in my day that I was having that I actually liked, well, chances are I would have more than one of them, right? I might have one in the morning, might have one in the afternoon, right? And that's on top of the fruit that I'm forcing myself to eat and the vegetables that I'm forcing myself to put on my plate. And because granola bars, especially if you're having the same chocolate chip granola bar over and over and over again, gets kind of boring, I thought maybe it would be cool if I was better to myself. And instead of going for chocolate chip, which is, of course, chocolate can't be healthy, I'll go for the yogurt ones because they're healthier and at least I get a change of flavor. But now I look back and realize that that was 25 grams of carbs for a 35-gram bar. So slightly larger bar, but it's only 25 grams, right? So it shouldn't be so bad, except just don't forget that I'm eating 2 of them per day. So now I'm up to 50 grams of carb per day extra instead of, 30, 34? These small little things add up. And I know I'm off topic a little bit here because to get back to metabolic flexibility, that's supposed to be about the idea that if we stop eating copious amounts of carbohydrate, we lose the ability to process them and have digestive issues. And of course, we're not getting those micronutrients that we need from those fruits and vegetables. But does anybody actually see the problem that I'm seeing with what I just told you about what I was actually doing day to day and what a lot of people I know are doing day to day? Is that I wasn't metabolically flexible to begin with, if that's the definition. If this is about getting your micronutrients from fruits and vegetables, I was never doing that, right? I was never eating healthy vegetables and healthy fruit because I actually wasn't eating any fruit, and I don't like vegetables that much. So French fries, that's what I was eating. So if this is about metabolic flexibility, like how many of you guys found yourself in a similar situation where you look back on what you were actually eating and maybe you were like me and there wasn't that much veg on the plate? And if there was veg on the plate, it wasn't varied. It was the veg you like, and you just kept eating that same veg you like. But we know that if you're going to eat veg for any kind of micronutrient help, it needs to be varied, right? Like that's what Dr. Berg keeps telling us. You need to have a wide variety of vegetables on your plate if you are going to be getting everything you need. So if that's what I was supposed to be trying to figure out, I was losing big time. But there's a second problem. Dr. Berry has been teaching about the proper human diet. And what I've learned from Dr. Berry and Dr. Baker, and I find out that Dr. Baker kind of informed Dr. Berry, and these guys, so they both kind of talking the same thing, is that a healthy human diet actually doesn't have a lot of veg in it, right? They both talk about the fact that in actual fact, since we make all the carbohydrate that our body actually needs, and if we really, really, really want to get those micronutrients, we could get them, if we think we need extra, we can get them from organ meats. But Dr. Baker points out you don't need that. There's micronutrients in muscle meat. But he's saying if you're worried, if you're scared, go for it. Eat the organ meats. He prefers the muscle meats, but whatever. So we don't need to eat carbs, so vegetables, to have metabolic flexibility, because what our body should be having to begin with are meats. So if I'm to understand what the doctors are saying, we don't need those. So we are born with this metabolic flexibility. And my interpretation of this, by the way, is going back to what we've always known. In times of scarcity, our ancestors ate vegetation. In times of scarcity, they ate more vegetation because they couldn't catch an animal. But as soon as they caught an animal, they went back to eating meat. And the Eskimos that up north, they still do that. But, I'm going to point something else out. We don't know what the definition of metabolic flexibility is. And because we don't know what the definition of metabolic flexibility is, again, we're making mistakes. So here's Dr. Bickman explaining what metabolic flexibility is.
So metabolic flexibility is really, I want to define it by actually looking at the bad version of it, which is this metabolic inflexibility, because that was how it was first noted by the scientist Brett Goodpaster at University of Pittsburgh. If you take a healthy person, feed them a meal, glucose burning spikes. So they eat a mixed macronutrient meal. The primary fuel, as they measure fuel use in the body, then becomes glucose burning. After a few hours, as they enter this kind of fasted state, it shifts and glucose burning comes down and fat burning climbs up. That's what we see in the healthy person. In other words, they shift between these fuel uses. Glucose in the fed state, which is what insulin is high, and then I'll come back to that idea in a moment with insulin, and then fat burning in the fasted state. That's a metabolically flexible situation. Inflexibility, metabolically speaking, is when the person, the fed state continues even in a fasted state. And by that I mean they eat a meal, glycolysis predominates, that's the main energy, and then even hours after the meal in the fasted state, glycolysis still predominates. Fat burning doesn't come online. So they are stuck. They are inflexible. They're stuck in sugar burning mode, or blood sugar or glucose. And importantly, insulin dictates that fuel use. If someone is metabolically inflexible, they are insulin resistant, their insulin is chronically elevated, and it is keeping the body stuck in sugar burning. And I mean that. Insulin controls fuel use. If the body is burning fat or burning glucose, it's because of insulin. And that's important because if someone wants to, sorry, I should finish. So insulin's high, the body's sugar burning. If insulin's low, the body's fat burning. And that matters because if someone wants to lose fat, they're going to have a very hard time doing that if they're really stuck in sugar burning mode. So you have to give your body a break from the insulin. Let the insulin come down.
Okay, so as you could see, clearly Dr. Bickman just explained that it's not about eating carbs. It's about your body switching back and forth naturally between using glucose for energy and fat for energy, because that's just what it does. And it's actually only not able to do it because we eat too much carb. Eating carb actually impedes our metabolic flexibility. It doesn't fix it. This is a mistake that the world is making. And I have lots of speculation as to why the world makes that mistake, because it does help some people, but it doesn't help us. It doesn't help you, Wellness Warrior, and it doesn't help me to get my life under control if I'm believing this lie that says I need to eat a lot of carbs to keep my body flexible. You just heard Ben Bickman explain that is actually the opposite. If I keep my insulin high, that means that my body cannot switch back and forth between these two fuel sources, and now I'm in trouble. All right, because that's where all these other damaging metabolic scenarios happen. So, if we learn something new, right? If we want to learn something new, in order to really, really fully understand it, learn it, like put it in our ability to do every single day, we need to immerse ourselves in it. And we need to embrace it fully. Many of you have trouble doing keto because Well, first of all, because of this message that says, but if you do keto for too long, you're going to lose your metabolic flexibility. You just heard Ben say that's not true. But then the other thing is that we have trouble doing keto because we're the only ones doing it. We're the only ones maybe in our family, but definitely sometimes in our circle, like our circle of friends. So we know, for example, that if you want to learn a new language, the best way to learn that new language is to put yourself around a bunch of people that speak that language. So by engaging more with people who speak, for example, French, my French has improved, right? Because my family of origin, our language was English. But my French has improved over the last few years because Pat's first language is French. Terrific. If you want your ability to do keto to improve, what you need to do is put yourself in a position where you are surrounded yourself by ketogenic stuff every day. So that means conversations, like today's conversation that we're having today. That means things like learning. So am I watching videos? Am I reading books? Am I investing myself in scenarios, situations where I'm going to be around keto? Am I planning my meals ahead of time so that I'm thinking about that meal so that every single meal is a meal that keeps me in a ketogenic state? And by doing these things where I am consistently faced with healthy keto options, healthy keto conversations, healthy. And I'm not saying that your whole life is going to be about food, but I want to point something out. We are able to eat the standard Canadian, American, wherever you happen to be from diet. Because why? Because we are constantly surrounded by that food. You go to a restaurant, standard food. You watch a commercial, standard food. You go to a friend's house, standard food. We are constantly surrounded by that food. And so therefore, we end up easily engaging that world. Wellness warrior, you want to put yourself in the position where you are faced with keto options, surrounded by keto options, talking to people who understand keto so that when they're talking about food, keto talk. The same way that we've been surrounded by standard, we want to now surround ourselves by keto. If you don't have people like that around you, join the Wellness Squad. Wellness Squad, all one word, .org. Right? Join the Wellness Squad because that's where you're going to be surrounded by people like you who want to be healthy, who are willing to put in the work to get healthy. And if I'm willing to put in the work, then the next part, so if I'm surrounding myself with the people, the next part is to be persistent, right? Is to do what you say you want to do. So when I say out loud to people, oh, I'm doing this, but in my brain, I'm saying something else, then I'm not going to do it, right? I have to be persistent in what I actually want to do for me. And that means I need to think about it. And it means that I need to understand that it doesn't take 1 week for keto to work. It doesn't take 1 month for keto to work because it's not about keto working. It's about you working keto, right? Like there's a reality that when I go to the gym and I get bigger muscles, or in my case, when I go climbing and I get bigger muscles, if I don't climb for a few weeks, guess what happens when I go back? I'm weaker. And I've already experienced that, right? We had a few weeks where schedules didn't line up and we couldn't get to the gym. And then we went back and the V2s that I was able to climb, I wasn't strong enough to climb. Why? Because for weeks we were going regularly and I was getting that exercise, that workout regularly. And then we didn't go for a few weeks. I think it was almost 3 weeks. We didn't go, maybe even a month. And when I went back, I'd lost my gains, right? Had lost my ability to do the thing. So we need to understand it's not about keto working. It's about you working keto. If I eat the healthy food, my body responds with health. If I stop eating the healthy food, my body stops being healthy. So to actually regain metabolic flexibility, I need to persist in eating the right things And your body will then get back to health and be able to rebuild itself. So this is the other part of the story, is how long would it take me to solve a problem that I created by eating the wrong diet? And I'm saying that because I want you guys to understand something. I created my inflammation issues by eating the wrong diet. So I'm the one that will need to change that. I'm keeping in mind that I didn't know that I was eating the wrong diet. I thought I was eating healthy when I did that 6 months full force push, only to realize I was making my situation worse. The only thing in that whole thing that helped me was walking for the hour every day. Everything else was making my situation worse, right? The hour of walk is what made me start to realize that this was an inflammation problem, not a weight and food problem in the way that I thought it was. Turns out it was a food problem in a different kind of way. I just didn't understand it. So understanding that it will take me 7 to 10 years to rebuild my body is super important, because this isn't short term. Because what happens when I rebuild my body? It's 10 years from now. So when I hit my 10-year mark and have a theoretically completely rebuilt me, and that's assuming that during the 10 years I haven't eaten anything that I shouldn't, but that's a whole other conversation. Again, I don't want to get off track. Stay on it, Violet. What happens at that 10-year mark? Does that mean, yay, now I can eat garbage again? Well, no, that's like you build your house, your perfect, beautiful house, and then day one, you take a sledgehammer and throw it through the wall. Why would you do that? You just built this house. But that's what happens when we eat excess amounts of carbohydrates. That's what we're not being told. So if I'm being persistent, that means that I know what I'm going to eat when I go to a party. And I know if I'm going to eat at that party, because if I'm going to a party of somebody who doesn't understand my keto lifestyle, who doesn't care about my keto lifestyle, who's going to make whatever, and I'm going to get there, and then I will eat before I get there. Because my friends don't need to worry about cooking specifically for me if they're having a party. Right? Now, if I'm going there for supper and they're not going to cook for me, I'm not going. Right? But if I'm going to a party, I'm not expecting something special. I'll eat before I go. If I'm going on vacation, I'm not expecting restaurants to change no, I'm going to eat what I can eat at the restaurants that I choose. That means I'm going to choose my restaurants carefully. I'm going to look at the menu. I'm going to call ahead. I'm going to explain my allergies. And I call them allergies because the restaurant doesn't want to kill me, right? So if I tell them I'm allergic to stuff, then they're going to not give it to me because they don't want to get sued. So I'm going to talk in a way that helps me to get what I want. And if I need to cook at home, if we're in an Airbnb or something, then I'll eat and I'll go do other activities rather than eating out. My point. Every scenario, I'm going to figure out a way to make it work for me, like eating during the holidays, right? I'm going to figure out how to make sure that my mom or my cousin or whoever happens to be cooking the meal knows what I can and can't have. And if they can't accommodate, I'm going to eat before I go. If you want good health, you're going to eat keto consistently, which means I need to be persistent in what you're doing. Now, the other thing you're going to do is you're going to think positively, right? We do what we tell ourselves we're going to do. If I say, I can't live without bread, guess what's going to happen? I'm not going to live without it. I'm going to eat it because I'm telling myself I can't live without it. My God, I have to have this, right? And so therefore I will. But what happens if I tell myself something like, I only eat healthy foods, which is what I told myself at this point 5.5 years ago. I told myself, from now on, I'm only eating healthy foods because healthy foods is what's going to help me to feel good. And then I did it and I felt good and I was even more solidified in that I'm only eating healthy foods. And if I eat a healthy food and it turns out to not do well with me, by definition, that's not healthy for me. So nightshades, peppers are healthy, right? Eggplant is healthy, right? And eggplant's keto friendly. Like eggplant makes me feel pain in my joints. So eggplant is not healthy for me. And so I reject eating eggplant. As far as I'm concerned, eggplant is garbage. Why? Because in my body, that's what it feels like. And I want you to think about that, because there's a lot of you who eat things but it's keto friendly. Dr. So-and-so said it's keto friendly, but you eat it like me and nuts, and I'm chasing and I'm out and my addiction is back and all this stuff is happening because guess what? As keto friendly, as cashews or almonds or pecan or whatever the nut might be, if it makes me chase because I can actually taste the sugar in it, then it's not healthy for me. You need to be looking at how you react and stop paying so much attention to how other people are reacting, because they're not you and you're not them. And the other thing that you're going to do if you want this lifestyle to be your lifestyle and your health to improve and you want to stick to keto and you want to do all the right things is you're going to plan. If you know what foods you like that are healthy and fall within the 20 grams, or you can eat a satisfying meal and have 20 grams or less per day if you're staying in that ketogenic zone. If you know what foods you like that allow that to happen, knowing that is the first step to eating that, right? I need to know what I like and what falls within this process. But the second part is that if I know what meals I'm going to have, so planning my meals for the day, for the week, however you're going to do it at the beginning, because you need to get this to become your habit. Again, can we pay attention to the fact that when we were eating standard diet, we had our habits? If I would ask you, standard diet, what do you have for breakfast? Chances are you could give me your list. Like, for example, standard diet, my list was, if I was having breakfast, pancakes or French toast or cereal. That was my list, right? It was rare that I would get up and make for breakfast eggs and bacon, because back then, my belief, oh my gosh, all that fat, right? So I'm having these other things that are much worse for my health. I digress. Did I know what I was eating? I absolutely knew, right? If you would have asked me what my typical side dish was at a restaurant, again, I know exactly what it is. So we know what we're going to eat. We know, so there's a meal plan there. But when it comes to keto, we expect to just do it without having a meal plan. And if we don't have a meal plan, that becomes our new habit of what we're going to eat. So if I don't have a new habit, I will do what? I'll go back to my old habit, because that's what I know. And if I go back to my old habit, that's a problem, because my old habit got me into this bad health. So even on that beginning trajectory, if you want to be successful in improving your health and eventually having that positive of good weight, then I need to plan my stuff. And I need to know what I'll do if someone tries to pressure me to eat garbage, right? I need to know what I'm going to say. A lot of people end up eating the junk because they go to the party and they didn't decide what they're going to say. If people say, hey, how come you're not having any pasta? Or, oh, mom made lasagna, you're not going to have some lasagna? And they don't know what they're going to say, right? And that's an easy one. Oh, I ate already. Okay, they might go for that. But then when the dessert comes around and you're not going to have a piece of cake, you're not going to have some pone or some like whatever fun stuff your family makes as a, some sweetbread or some, what does your family make? That's the fun thing that everybody's like, oh my gosh, you have to have those chocolate chip cookies maybe that grandma made, or whatever the thing is. What are you going to say? And if I don't know what I'm going to say, I end up eating the thing. And then I'm mad at myself because I ate the thing, and I know that my health is going to suffer. But my health is suffering because I don't know what I'm going to say. You need to know what you're going to eat and what you're not going to eat before you get to the party, right? And you need to know what you're going to say if you're not planning to eat the stuff before they ask you the question. Because ultimately, the bigger thing that I'm trying to get you to see is that you need to know what your objective that you're trying to achieve is, right? You need to have your success right in front of your eyes at all times. It needs to be in your sights. You need to be envisioning a year from now when I can run up the stairs, right? That's what I wanted. Like I can run up the stairs again. I can go longboarding again, right? At one point I couldn't step up on a curb, and I'm back to doing these things, a curb, right? I have multiple steps in my house and I couldn't get up on a curb. So just think about the frustration. I can longboard again. I took up climbing, right? That was new. This year I took that up. I snowboarded again. I'm back to living my life again because I solved the problem, because I kept my goal in my sights, because the reason I didn't want an operation, the reason I didn't want to take medication, besides being scared of both of those things, was because I didn't believe that even if I had an operation, that it would equal, and then I can longboard again, then I can ski again. Like, can you imagine you have like this fragile replacement hip and then you fall on a snowboard? The doctor's going to look at you like, what's the matter with you? Like, are you just trying to never be able to walk again? So I was scared. I needed to put in place better habits to replace the bad ones that I knew were there, because I knew they were there. And if I didn't change them, then I knew that they would come back, right? I needed something to say, this is my habit now. And then I needed to not quit on myself, not quit on the process, not quit on what I was trying to. Your health is what matters most. And so if my health truly matters most, I cannot quit at what I'm doing. Because if I'm not going to fight for it, who's going to fight for it? This is my body. I'm the one feeling the pain, right? I keep pointing here because this is where the pain was. Like, I so remember that. You know, there's certain things that I've improved. I barely remember. Like the other day when we were writing out the list of like what were the things that improved, it was funny to me when I kind of casually remembered, and I hadn't thought about this in years, that my teeth were so sensitive that I would bite into things whether it was hot or cold, and my teeth, like, it was not fun for me to eat things that were not room temperature. And I like hot food, right? And every once in a while I'd be chewing hot food and my teeth would just go, right? I like cold drinks. I like ice in my drinks. And then but I wasn't able to drink properly because. So there's so many things that will did improve for me because I ate healthy. And nobody else feels these things. You know, I was saying to my dad the other day, like, I asked him, did you really understand how much pain I was walking around in every day? Like, did you understand that every single day my back hurt, my neck hurt, my knees hurt, my elbows hurt? And my dad looked at me and said, you walked normal, talked normal, joked around like usual. I had no idea. He said, if you would have said to me, my back is hurting me, I would have thought, oh, a little tweak or something. I had no idea. Because guess what? When you're in pain all the time, you just learn to live with it, right? And you just do your thing. And I was the kind of person that, unless it was tearing me apart, I'm going to walk straight and I'm going to do my thing and I'm going to look normal, and right? Because I want to play with my daughter. And she's very sensitive. She's like very caring. And if I looked like I couldn't manage, she'd be like, oh no, mommy, don't hurt yourself. Like, that's her. Like, she just cares about people in that way. And I wanted to play with her. So I wasn't gonna, I'm fine. I'm good. Right. Even though I wasn't. And can you imagine me at work talking to clients and trying to help them? And I'm like, oh no, I had to look okay. I'm fine. I'm good. Right. We learn how to hide it. But why? But two is that I can never hide it from me. I knew I was in pain. So you need to do this, not because the world is going to see a good version of you, because probably the world's already seeing a good version. You are probably presenting the best possible version of yourself that you possibly can to the world because X, Y, Z, because that's what we do, right? But do you feel amazing inside? I wouldn't trade what I have right now for a piece of cake, a chocolate bar, anything, because I feel good. I feel good. So if you quit, what happens? The doctors, they're going to have some more work to do and they're going to get paid. And the pharma, they're going to sell you some medication, the creams to put on your back or pills to take to ease the pain or whatever. They're going to give you their answers. And yeah, you just end up in pain all the time pretending to be okay. Or maybe not pretending at some point because you just can't hide it anymore. But if you actually want metabolic flexibility, listen to Ben Bickman. He gave you the answer. You need to give your body healthy food that allows your insulin levels to be at their normal levels, which means that when you eat something, if there happens to be carb in it, yes, it's going to go up, but then it's going to go back to baseline. And by the way, Wellness Warrior, I want to point out that most of us believe somehow, even myself as I was watching that and he was explaining it, he reinforced to me because I knew this at one point. Again, the things that you learn, stuff I learned in university, now stuff I've learned about keto and insulin. He said it and it was just like, yes, when you eat carbohydrate, even that 20 grams of carb or less that we keep talking about, you still have an insulin rise. You still go into glucose burning mode. It's not like you eat the carbohydrates but you're over here in fat burning. No, you go into glucose burning mode. You have to. You just ate carb. And then it goes back down into into fat burning mode. But understand, you went into glucose burning mode. We ate somewhere between 0 and 20 grams of carbs. And when he said it, it was like, ding, 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 ding. Yes, of course. Every day I'm going into glucose burning mode. Because why? Because I'm metabolically flexible. So this garbage that they keep trying to tell us that you need to eat a lot of carb to be in, it's garbage. It's not reality. Do not let them fool you. If you're interested in knowing a little bit more about how much junk food you can actually eat, I did make a video talking about that. I'm going to link it there, but it's in the description right now if you want to watch it after this live stream is over. Because I really feel like we need to figure out how to help ourselves understand what is the healthy things that we should be doing. So you can check that video out after the stream, and let's have a little chat. I want to end this video by talking about the fact that I want you to prioritize you. I want you to do the things that make you healthy, right? That's the whole prioritize health over taste is about prioritizing you. If you prioritize your health first and taste is secondary to health, then what ends up happening by prioritizing yourself, you end up eating foods that taste delicious just because you learned to find them delicious. And that ultimately means that you're healthier, your tastes change, you like what you're eating because your tastes have changed and you've honed in on these healthy foods and allowed those flavors to be the flavors that are now guiding you. As I can guarantee you, Wellness Warriors, every single thing that I eat, I like it. I don't force myself to eat things anymore like I was forcing myself to eat fruits and vegetables in my history. I don't force myself to eat anything. I eat what I like, and I like what I eat. And you can too. If you prioritize yourself, which means that you'll put your health first, it means you'll put your comfort first, it means you'll put your well-being before that of other people, companies, and ideas that aren't your everyday, because you live your everyday. So this was an amazing conversation, and I'm so, so happy that I got to have it with you. And I can't wait to talk to you guys next Monday at 11:20. I will see you. Have a great weekend.